Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Poulin played in the National Hockey League from 1982 to 1995, 724 games. First with the Philly Flyers, then the Boston Bruins, and then the last 2 seasons with the Washington Capitals. He's a TSN analyst now. And bring him in, guys, if you don't mind. And I read your bio there, Dave. For the younger kids, I'm sorry to say, I couldn't remember if I should be saying you're a Philly great or a Bruins great. I remember your OPG hockey card with the SK2000. I remember the card very well. I had several of those, Dave. But what do you consider yourself, a Flyer or a Bruin? Or both?
It's an oft-asked question, Rod. And pleasure to be here today, by the way. But I think I'm a Philadelphia Flyer, and that's the way I view myself. I think that's the way most people view me. It might be different in the northeast of Canada, where the Bruins fans are really prevalent up there because of the Bobby Orr era and the fact they didn't want to cheer for Montreal or Toronto, and they had to cheer for somebody. Yeah. So they cheered for the Bruins. But I think most often I'm recognized as a Flyer from the years through the mid-'80s and identified with those teams probably the best.
We got Flyers fans that are writing in that agree with you. By the way, that they're claiming you. And, Dave, if you notice, these aren't your typical interviews that we do on this show. For instance, you're from Timmins, Ontario. Until about 1995, were you the most prominent Timmins product?
Yeah, I think there was a young lady that sang pretty well out of there that got a little notoriety.
Right.
That went with a single name. I actually use both my names. She just uses her first name. And so I think Shania gets top billing. Although the U16s were up there one year, and my assistant coach went to the front desk of the Senator Hotel. And he introduced himself. He said, I'm from the University of Notre Dame. And is anybody from Timmins? So sort of a test question for the clerk. And the clerk immediately said, absolutely, Dave Poulin's from Timmins. Shania Twain is from Timmins. And he said, most importantly, he said it in that order. So
yeah,
I do get top billing when hockey's involved, but she takes over the rest of the world.
I might add to University of Regina Rams director Paul Barnby's from Timmins, Ontario, too. But even he's he's before your time. But Dave, I got to say this. Producer Clark was telling me that you're coming on the air in Saskatchewan and you're thinking about, would you say Weyburn, Yorkton, that you'd made those trips?
Yorkton,
what's the story?
Weyburn.
Yeah.
Well, so my first real introduction to the small towns in Saskatchewan was through my Philadelphia Flyer teammates. The beloved lost far too early Brad McCrimmon from Plenty, and Brian Propp, my line mate from Neudorf, and Lindsey Carson from North Battleford. So you'd always heard, of the small towns. But then when I went from being a player in the NHL, Rod, to being the head coach at the University of Notre Dame in 2 days. So totally ill-prepared to coach at any level, let alone at the NCAA Division I level, where I had played for 4 years. So that was the hook to bring me back. And, I had no idea about the recruiting trails, anything else, but I did know we had 2 freshmen on our team that were really good. And one was actually a kid named Benoit Cotenoir, who had played for the Weyburn Red Wings the year before. And he was 100% French-speaking from Quebec. And in order to learn English and pursue an NCAA scholarship, he had gone through Weyburn. And the other one was Lyle Andrusiak from Foam Lake, Saskatchewan. And so I'm looking at these 2 kids and saying, well, they're pretty good players. Why don't we have more players from Saskatchewan on our team? And, they introduced the fact, recruiting costs and that Major A was a real battle out there, because if a player was really good at 15 or 16 years old, they were going to taint him, actually get him in a Major A game, and then he wouldn't be eligible to go to the NCAAs. But I did go back. I pulled a great goalie. He was playing in Flin Flon, but he's a Wilkie native, Morgan Say, from a big hockey playing family up there, the Say family. So I pulled a couple of other good kids out of there over the years. And the first time I went to Wilcox, I landed in Regina, and I'm driving down 6. So you have a couple of windows in mid-December when you can recruit as a head coach, because the school is shut down for final exams. The playing is shut down. So I get my directions, and I'm driving down Route 6, Highway 6, and it is, I don't know, maybe 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and it's getting to be pretty dark, and there's black ice in the roads. I can feel that. And somebody has told me there's a great shortcut called 4 Mile Road just before you get to the V, and it's this great shortcut. So I haven't passed a vehicle in I don't know how long, and I slow down because I sense I'm getting close, and I see just a little sign. It says 4 Mile Road, and I turn the headlights towards the bush and see like a trail, like carved out. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking 4 Mile Road shortcut. So I walked into the rink. I was there. Yeah. Well, I'm a Timmins native. I've got some winter experience. And so I get to the rink, and the weather's brutal. And there's 2 other people in the building. And it's Jeff Sauer, the head coach of Wisconsin, and Jerry York, the head coach of Boston College. And all 3 of us are there to see the same kid. And we just laughed. We'd all made the trip individually, secretly, of course, so no one would know where we were. And we're standing in the foyer of Notre Dame watching a young man play.
Dave, I grew up on a farm 9 miles south of Wilcox, and I still get lost on 4 Mile Road because there's a crooked jaunt getting out of there to get to
highway. I love that you know it.
Oh, I've been on it many times. I can't believe you remember that stuff. And I should mention, too, by the way, that this show airs in Philadelphia. I'm not sure the cable carrier, but we've got a real synergy going with Philly. We've got people that are stumbling across our show. Remember Dan Saravelli?
Yeah.
A Flyers podcaster there, and he wrote me, and he's just like, tell me about the prairies in Saskatchewan. You mentioned Prop, but he brought up Hextall, of course, and Bobby Clark, Flin Flon. So there just seems to be a synergy between this show and Philly, and frankly, I love it. And I also
I think we were adopted by a lot of people out there with the 67 expansion. And, a lot of people in the West wanted a team of their own, and they wanted somebody to identify with other than Toronto and Montreal. And with Bobby Clark, being the Flin Flon bomber, and then Reggie Leach right behind. And I think because of the way we played, Rod, that may have had an attraction to a lot of people out there. The way the Broad Street Bullies played through the 70s and the way our teams played through the 80s. And, we went up against the mighty Oilers far too often in late rounds of the playoffs. But I think a lot of people identified with the way we played hockey.
Yeah, and Rich Sutter and Ronnie Lethbridge fit right into the whole mold. And by the way, here's a scout for the Wheat Kings writing in, Dallas Fedorchuk, who says, don't do 4 Mile Road in the spring. He's talking about how muddy it is.
Now he's telling me.
Exactly. A little late. And by the way, I did get a DM here on Twitter from Don McGilvery saying thanks for the congratulations, the new coach of the Wheat Kings. So there is hockey going on, Dave. There's hockey business going on out here in Western Canada. We're waiting for the NHL return. How are you specifically filling your time in a quiet time for the NHL?
It's my summertime. And, normally in the summer we shut down the show. So Gino Retta's That's Hockey, I'm a regular on, is shut down. The Sports Center hits are all shut down. We're starting to refocus back onto the World Juniors. Craig Button and Ray Ferraro and Jeff O'Neill do a great job of covering that. So I'm not involved in that. But it'll ramp back up in early December. Right now, I do radio shows. It's been a big year recently for me in Philadelphia, and this goes in ebbs and flows and cycles. And Rod, unfortunately, it was the 35th year of the death of Pelle Lindbergh on November 10th, 11th. So I did a lot of radio about that subject over the time. And just as things come up, I'm pretty connected to the Philadelphia area. I have a daughter in that area and a granddaughter. And so I get back to that area the most and stay connected to that group. And they do a great job with their alumni. A couple of years back, on the 50th year of expansion, I think I went back a total of 7 times during the season for various celebrations. And so I'm keeping busy with podcasts, with radio. I actually have started writing a little bit, which is really intriguing. I've been challenged by and nothing is official yet. It's going to be announced shortly, but I've been challenged on the writing front to get more involved. And I've never really written. So that's kind of exciting, and taking on that challenge and seeing if I can put some thoughts together, and just trying to keep busy, trying to keep up with things. I'll build the new rosters shortly, presuming that we're going to get going again here in early into the new year. I have a method I do of building my rosters, because I actually have started doing color. For the last 3 years, I did in the mid-30s, early 30s number of games for the Montreal Canadiens for TSN with Brian Mudryk, who does a magnificent job. A lot of people know him from his start in curling, and he's a Western guy originally, so from Alberta. So we do the Canadiens games. I do the Leaf panels, and I really love the fact that I'm involved in all the different silos. So Leafs panels, those are 30. Another 30-plus Montreal games, but that's color, and it's a totally different job, as you well know. Preparation is different. Obviously, there's travel involved, both to Montreal, wherever they are on the road. And then the shows I talked about, Gino Reda's show, I'm a regular on. The Sports Center hits you'll do a lot of, and you'll do, sometimes you'll just do that in an evening. And then the radio stuff I love. So I like doing the shows. I like, talking about the game that we play and getting into the different markets. And because I am sort of broad-based, not, just with one team locally, I stay pretty up on things across the league.
I wondered how Moody would do play-by-play with the Canadiens and tuned it in, and he nailed Kokaniemi. And I thought, he's got it. He'll be fine.
He's great. Yeah, he's terrific. I really enjoy it. We have a lot of fun doing the games and a lot of fun bringing his energy to the game, and he's been great.
If I may, just not a selfish question, a curious question. For these younger kids, like Pelle Lindbergh died before these guys were born, right? So how would you even know, right? You and Clark and stuff. Took over from Pete Peters, outstanding goalie. Would I be right in saying he was the best goalie in the National Hockey League at the time of his tragic death? If not, he was be top three. Yeah, I would say he was the best.
No, he was. He had won the Vezina. The Vezina, and he was first-team All-Star that year. And he had taken a young team, and Rod, we had no business being in the Stanley Cup Finals that year against the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, you mentioned Richie and Ronnie Sutter. They'd have both been 20 years old. Tocchet was 20 years old. Murray Craven was 20 years old. Another good, Western boy from Medicine Hat. We had Peter Zezel and Derek Smith were 19 years old. We just had this young group of guys, and we had a first-year NHL coach in Mike Keenan. And and the battles that went on in those rooms between coach and players was legendary in itself. But we had no business being there. We had a goaltender who was so good that he taught the team to win. And we'd win a game 1-0, and we'd be strutting around. And we were only winning because of one person. But what it did was it developed such a confidence in our group that then we believed we could win, and then we learned how to win. And, it was far too early for him to leave us in November of 1985. We had come off the Stanley Cup Finals the year before, and you feel like you're invincible. You feel like you're going to, look at how young we are. Look at how good we are. Look at, we're going to make this run forever. And even our older guys like Brian Propp and Brad McCrimmon were still 24 years old, 25 years old. And Tim Kerr would have been right in that age group as well. And then in one fell swoop with a very poor decision, Pelle was gone. And changed the dynamics of that hockey team, because that hockey team through the mid-'80s, when people really delve into it, is two pieces. The first piece is the Pelle Lindbergh team, and then, of course, there's a year gap, and we knew we had Ron Hextall in the system, and the decision was made to leave him in the American Hockey League with Hershey, and he had a great run there, played the full year, and then we brought him up the next year, and he was the Conn Smythe winner and all-world. But, there's a great trivia question. He was first-team All-Star. He won the Conn Smythe and won the Vezina. Do you know he didn't win the Rookie of the Year that year, Rod?
Who did?
Luc Robitaille.
He had a great rookie year.
He had an unbelievable year.
Yeah.
But we were all saying, is he going to be a trivia question someday? Of course, he's a great Hall of Famer. But, we all thought he's going to be a trivia question. How can the Vezina Trophy winner not win the Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. Oh, boy, I could sit and talk to you for hours about this. And I think, given the pandemic situation, one day we might. There's a lot of Philly fans watching the show, Dave. So I will let you go just to say that when I watch you on there, because of all these stories, I really enjoy what you have to say, because I know your background. I know you know what you're talking about. So keep it up. And like you, we're looking forward to the World Juniors. Rich Sutter is our World Junior analyst on this show. So Rich is excited to have another reason to watch the tourney, because, as you know, he's scouting for Columbus. But I appreciate this, Dave. It's been a long time coming. Thanks for the time today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Anytime, Rod. Good luck with everything.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Same to you. Dave Poulin joining us from Toronto, TSN. And Ricky Kazama's writing in. Ricky Regina says, isn't Dave a Harvard graduate too? Well, he could be, as you could tell how well-spoken he is, but he did graduate from Notre Dame. Fighting Irish.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.